It was my first game that I was in attendance to. I'd been a fan for a few years by then, and you sort of knew from the grown-ups' perspective that what had been going on wasn't good enough. I remember us winning the League Cup twice in 1 year, actually. We're the only club who's ever done that because they moved it to be played in the sort of early winter. And when you're 7, winning the League Cup's the same as winning the World Cup, but I could tell from the grown-ups that it wasn't the same. When Graham Souness arrived, it was just incredible because this guy was a world figure in football, and it's no exaggeration to say that. He'd been playing in Serie A, and back then if you were playing in Serie A, that was the best, that was the elite, that was what all the top players, the guys you only saw at World Cups, had played. And of course he'd been the captain of that Liverpool side, which has a shout for being one of the best teams of all time. So when he swept in, everything was buzzing. The queues at the stadium were huge. I remember seeing on the news of people trying to get season tickets, and then the signings started to happen, and it just felt fantastic. I remember we lost our first match, and Graham's studs were brutally attacked by a Hibs player, and the referee, of course, fell for the Hibs player's histrionics and sent him off. So the second game, the home game, we lost that first game, and of course it was bedlam in the press. And right, we're gonna win. So my dad took me up, and I remember going up in a supporters bus from Ayrshire, and everything about it just was larger than life. The characters, and then you got to the stadium, which was magnificent at the time, the best in Britain, I think, one of the best in the world. And I made my poor dad go into the stadium at 1:30. He couldn't go for a drink because I wanted to be there sitting bouncing for an hour and a half before kick-off. And it was Dundee United were a good side back then. There's a lot of good players, won the league a couple of years before, and they would go on to reach the UEFA Cup final that summer. And we went 2-0 up, and we played really well, and it was passive, modern football, kind of the thing that Souness had done at Liverpool. And then we lost 3-2. With a second half collapse. So I came back though, so it didn't put me off that much, but it was a kind of bittersweet experience. I still got the programme, and the day's very vivid in my memory. There are games from the last couple of years that I need to look up the footage to be reminded of, but that one's burnt into my retinas. To be honest, we were more impressed with the other big signing that summer, which was Basil Bolly, because he'd scored the winning goal in the European Cup final, and he was, the type of player that cult hero kind of thing written all over him. But we were excited about Brian Laudrup. I don't think we realised just how good he was. How could you? But that day we were playing Motherwell, and it was typical start of season stuff. Not everything was gelling, we weren't playing very well. And he showed some beautiful touches, typical winger, you might have thought. And we were doing okay. But then I always remember last minute, one each, crowd going mental, rolling everybody on. And he got the ball inside his own half, and he dribbled past. In my mind, it's everyone. If you've got the goal and you show it and it's 3 or 4, that's fine. But to me, it's always going to be everyone. And squared it, and Duncan Ferguson put it in at the back post, and the place went barmy, and you were just thinking, there's something going on here, because it was the way he did it. It was, everything about him was different. The body shape, the strength, the ability. A remarkable player, and of course, as we found out, that was just a taster. And I think he kind of ruined wingers for me, because up to that point, I thought of wingers, most people did, that they flitted in and out of games, and so long as you get 2 or 3 minutes of brilliance from them, then that was all you could ask. Laudrup got the ball, and every time he made something happen. Every time he made something good happen, whether it be ending up with a shot at goal, a pass to a teammate, a corner, whatever. And so since then, poor wingers that have got to go on and play, you're kind of looking at them going, didn't get by his man every time, how good is he? So they can all blame him for that, because he ruined a generation of Rangers fans when it comes to how good a winger should be. Yeah, that was the Paul Gascoigne yellow card for booking the referee game. Well, the ref had dropped Dougie Smith, I remember his name live on in infamy. He dropped his yellow card, Gaza picked it up, ran up to him and went, handed him it, and everybody laughed, and the referee booked him. You see the look in his face, it was just, have a laugh. But of course, I'm a great believer that referees aren't actual human beings, so I think they're built in a lab somewhere in Mount Florida. So that just kind of plays to type. But we were brilliant that day, we were fantastic. I remember a kind of weather situation where there was freezing all around Glasgow, and a pipe burst somewhere in the stadium, so the kick-off was delayed for 15 minutes, which just built up the anticipation. And it was at Christmas time, it was that break between Christmas and New Year, and we were fantastic. We were absolutely unplayable that day. And Hibs had in goal Jim Leighton, who was not a popular figure among the Rangers support. I remember that day they giving him what might be politely termed good-natured ribbing as he was walking off at the end. Andy Gorham went up to commiserate him because they were both Scotland keepers, and he just looked shell-shocked. To be honest, they were lucky it was 7. It could have been easily double figures and more. And that was the point where Gazza was settling and really starting to show who he was. The first couple of months you saw flashes of it as he was getting his fitness back. He did long layoffs when he was in Italy. And by that stage he was really starting to come into his own, and from then, that next 6 months, from start of December through at the end of the season, Paul Gascoigne was just everything you could want a football player. He was your inspiration, he was the guy that you turned to when things weren't going well, and he had a knack of just producing some unbelievable goals. Obviously, in light of what followed, it takes on an added significance. A friend of mine had said, he phoned me up and said, "I've got you a ticket for that game." I thought, brilliant, no problem. So travelled down together, me and a few friends, Scott from my podcast, Robbie, a few other guys. And we went down and talked about the hype. And then when I get there and I meet my friend Stuart, he's got tickets for the home end. Oh no. So scarf tucked in. And I said, "Look, let's keep the headway going here." He said, "Yeah, absolutely. So if we score, let's just be polite, we'll have our celebration at the end. No problem." 30 seconds in, ball through, boom, Rangers score, place goes nuts, everybody leaps out, and me and Stu, yeah! And then we looked round, and luckily 75% of the stadium had done it as well. There were 5 Rangers fans in there for every Kilmarnock fan, so that was fine. In the home ends, they just sort of sorted that they moved the Killie fans to one side, moved all the Rangers fans to the other, and from there on in, it was just a great day with 3 up inside 7 minutes, the stuff of dreams. And although I should point out, my friend Robbie at half time, 3-0 up, said, "The game's not done yet." So, I'd say you're worse than me for pessimism, but it was. Second half, we got another couple pretty easily, and then for a day that had threatened to be so tense, like the 6-1, to then be over in 7 minutes was fantastic. And then Kilmarnock were very good about letting the club parade with the trophy, and we then were able to celebrate long into the night. But yeah, so it's taken on an extra meaning after that, and I think that was a team that did 3 in a row before circumstance intervened. So we were talking about underrated sides. I think that's one that history will judge a bit better than maybe it was at the time. Until we win 55, then 54 is going to have that. It's going to have that cachet around it. It's going to be held up as what we're trying to achieve, and it's good that we know that. It's good that there's nobody settling for second best. There's nobody who's going to be complacent. We know what we want to do. We know where we need to go. And for the supporters, we want to recapture that feeling. Although, because of what's happened, 55 is going to feel unique. It's going to feel like there's going to be so many emotions flying around when that happens. But that's a good barometer to look back and say, this is what we need to be, this is how you achieve it. And you're right, that day I'm glad I was there. Looking back, it was a privilege, and even in the wrong end, I'm still glad I was there that day.